Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post, publisher of more than 1,000 comic books and marketing expert covering a college being sued for firing an employee for being white. That is the story. Let's get into the story. Before we do, please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate you guys. Coming from the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, white University of Wisconsin employee sues over alleged demotion from diversity job. Kicked out of her job, ultimately had to leave. From Spiked, diversity just means discrimination. Aviva CEO has unwittingly revealed the backwardness of the DEI agenda. She's an insurance company chief executive that refuses to let her employees hire a white person unless she approves of them. From the National Review, DEI's year in retreat. The battle against DEI has not been won, but has been joined. For the first time in a long time, its advocates are on the run. From Harvard Business Review, ESG is under attack. How should your company respond? They're trying to strategize and figure out how to protect pushing their progressive agenda at their companies. You go, Harvard, do your best. A University of Wisconsin employee filed a federal lawsuit this month alleging she was essentially forced to resign from her position in a campus diversity office because she's white. Rochelle Hoffman, who now works as a senior academic advising coordinator for the university, sued her employee December 14th in the Western District of Wisconsin. She argued the University of Wisconsin failed to provide a work environment free of racial harassment and ignored federal law banning race from being a factor in employment decisions. Quote, after 8 months of intense hostility and staff questioning her legitimacy in the department because of her race and color, she felt she had no choice but to resign, the complaint said. The lawsuit, first reported by Wisconsin Public Radio, comes amid intense scrutiny over diversity, equity, and inclusion offices. Hoffman's lawsuit will likely reinforce the views of Republicans who see DEI as racially divisive and financially wasteful. Well, yeah, it is pretty divisive and it is incredibly wasteful because you're not giving people equal opportunities to do their best job, which is discriminatory against the people that you're hiring. But it also creates a polluted system where you've got people doing jobs who aren't doing an effective job because you didn't hire them based on their merit. Doesn't matter what they look like, doesn't matter their gender, doesn't matter their sexual preference, but you can't have a system built completely of weak links. Of course, some people can rise to the occasion. That's terrific. Give them the opportunity to. But hire people at the level that they're appropriate for, not because of their skin color or their gender or their sexual preferences. The fight over diversity, equity, and inclusion will continue into 2024. Assembly Speaker Robin Vos has vowed to conduct a review of DEI across state government and eliminate DEI on UW campuses. Mary Kennelly of Fox & Fox law firm, who was representing Hoffman, did not return a request for comment. UW also declined to comment. Spokesperson Mike Nuth said, aside from noting the university does not discriminate based on race in any employment decisions. So when did the alleged racial discrimination actually start? In 2022, UW reorganized its Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Division and established a new office of Multicultural Student Services, the complaint said. The university's chief diversity officer, Olga Diaz, appointed Hoffman as interim director of the office because she had the longest record of service among coordinators and highest student retention rate. What followed the lawsuit laid out was a campaign to oust Hoffman from her position solely because of her race and skin color. During open houses, students questioned Diaz's decision to hire a white woman for a job serving students of color. The Student Senate adopted a resolution condemning the reorganization while noting the white individuals serving in positions of interim leadership. Professors who met with Diaz shared concerns about the optics of people of color being replaced by white people. The two previous directors were Black and Asian. Hoffman's co-workers became hostile, questioning her decisions and removing her access to their online calendars. An anonymous complaint was filed against Hoffman, alleging Hoffman's presence made her feel uncomfortable. How did the University of Wisconsin respond to complaints about Rochelle Hoffman? In response to the student and staff pushback, Teresa O'Halloran, who headed the university's Affirmative Action Office, I guess they're going to need to close that after the ruling from the Supreme Court. We'll have to follow up on that story too. So she told Hoffman she was being moved to a different office for her personal and professional safety. The complaint said, Hoffman said she hadn't requested the move and viewed it as a demotion. What do they mean for her personal and professional safety? Were there some kinds of criminal complaints filed? I'm not seeing anything like that. I looked at 4 or 5 different versions of this story. I saw no police complaints, no threats of violence, nothing like that. Some obnoxious student comments in some of the other articles, but nothing where she should have to fear for her safety. What came of other complaints? This isn't Hoffman's first attempt at seeking redress. Hoffman filed a complaint with the University of Wisconsin in summer 2022. She alleged human resources manager Jen Steinhost suggested she drop the complaint or otherwise suffer career damage. That sounds like a threat. A few days before classes began in fall 2022, Hoffman learned the course she was slated to teach had been reassigned. She felt the decision was retaliation for refusing to drop her complaint. University of Wisconsin system investigators dismissed her complaint, saying she did not provide evidence of a pattern of harassment, and testimony from other employees conflicted with her account. Hoffman also filed a complaint with the State Department of Workforce Development last year. Agency spokesperson Mike Mosher said Hoffman withdrew her case to pursue in federal court before the division had drawn conclusions. So what does Hoffman want out of all this? The lawsuit doesn't specifically say how much money Hoffman is seeking. She requested money to make up for lost wages, both past and future, stemming from career damage and loss of earning capacity. Hoffman also requested punitive damages against O'Halloran and the University of Wisconsin Chancellor Jim Schmidt. Here are some of the nasty comments that Hoffman has had to deal with. From the Daily Mail, students and faculty repeatedly expressed they didn't want white people overseeing spaces intended to serve students of color, according to her lawsuit. One of the students cited in the suit allegedly asked during an open forum, quote, "Do you personally feel white staff can do as effective a job as a person of color within a space for people of color?" Another student is quoted as saying, "We don't want white people in the MSS office. Our heritage months are not for the campus. They are for us only." Okay, but this is an office funded by the state. It's incredible that people have the nerve to speak to people this way. The suit alleges at the open house forum, student wanted Diaz to promise she would hire people of color to work in MSS. There was an absolute sense that any position formerly held by a person of color needed to be filled by a person of color, preferably a person with the same profile to maintain the affinity-based model. Quote, "The affinity model that had been in use at the University of Wisconsin was premised on the idea that for a student to be well served, they needed to be assigned a coordinator of the same ethnic background, and that a white person could not adequately support a student of color." Well, that is a very silly model. It is illegal. You can't do this, and no student should think that they have the right to expect that. It's completely inappropriate. From a business and management perspective, it also would allow you to hire extra people of this color and extra people of that color and extra people of that color, all kinds of extra people that you don't need because you're hiring to make sure that you have enough capacity to serve everyone of every possible color to match them with. That is an invitation that, first of all, these offices sound very inappropriate to me anyway. But even running an inappropriate office, you can't just overstaff it to the point of ridiculous so that you have people of skin color to match up with other people of other races and genders and backgrounds. You would have people sitting around doing nothing most of the day who could be actually helping other people, but they're not the right skin color to help people. So you would have about 40 to 50% downtime at a minimum, no matter what size the organization is, no matter what size the campus is. Realistically, you would have massive amounts of ineffectiveness and inefficiency because people would be sitting around doing nothing instead of helping people that aren't the same skin color as them. Completely inappropriate and a total waste of money. According to her lawsuit, in the job, Hoffman created and managed programming for students of color and for low income for first-generation college students and taught classes and created new classes to improve retention, grade point averages, and graduation rates for these groups. She had been successful in her job before. She'd been doing this kind of a job for 6 years prior to this. They had no right to pull her out of there. And they need to tell these entitled, bratty students they can't choose the skin color of the people that are offering them free services paid for by the state. And now, over to a racist insurance company? Diversity just means discrimination. Amanda Blanc, the chief executive of insurance company Aviva, has revealed that no white males can be hired to senior positions without her approval. Speaking last week at a Treasury Select Committee hearing on sexism in the finance industry, Blanc said that there can be no non-diverse hire at Aviva without it being signed off by me and the Chief People Officer. It was an admission that revealed a lot about the impact of the diversity, equity, and inclusion agenda on employment and public life more broadly. Thanks to DEI, it is now acceptable for a CEO to state that she will subject non-diverse candidates, a coded reference to white males, to extra scrutiny, which sounds very much like discrimination. This captures the through-the-looking-glass logic of DEI, a logic that menaces every principle of fairness and equality. After all, a fair approach to recruitment would ensure that vacancies are widely advertised so as to broaden the pool of applicants. That way, an organization can maximize its chances of finding the best applicant with the best skills and talents for the role advertised. But as Blanc reveals, that is not what is happening in the sections of the corporate world today. In the name of DEI, businesses and other organizations are actively narrowing the range of applicants, potentially screening out so-called non-diverse candidates. They seem less interested in which candidate is best qualified for the role in question than in whether they tick the right diversity boxes. Such an approach is often justified on the grounds of battling sexism or racism. Yet ironically, both racism and sexism are actually encouraged by the DEI agenda. After all, it effectively legitimizes discrimination on the basis of sex and skin color. Furthermore, because the imperatives of DEI encourage recruitment on the basis of racial or sex categories rather than individual merit, this can lead public, civic, and private organizations to undermine their core purpose. Well, of course it undermines their core purpose. You can't just build a chain of weak links and think it's going to work out okay. The chain's going to break. Aviva's aim is ostensibly to provide insurance services to the public. Its recruitment policy should be informed by the need to perform that function well. Yet on Blanc's watch, Aviva's recruitment seems to be informed by identity politics instead. Of course, those defending diversity, equity, and inclusion will claim that it helps people from minority backgrounds. But more often than not, it actually undermines ethnic minority recruits. Those recruited on the basis of their ethnicity or sex rather than on merit will likely struggle to work alongside those who've been selected based on merit alone. This leads to a divided and resentful workplace. It also damages people's future career opportunities. You're supposed to get in at the level that's appropriate for you, and then work, and then find a mentor, and then make connections inside the company, outside the company, network, go to industry trade shows. When I meet people, I always try to tell them if they're new in industry, if they're new in business in any way, any industry that you're interested in or that you might be interested in usually has these business get-togethers with different people from that specific industry. They do it in insurance, they do it in marketing, they do it in the restaurant industry, they do it with internet businesses, they literally do it with everything. You get to meet people, exchange business cards, or just take business cards. Ask questions. You can find incredible business opportunities at some of these trade shows. Just go where you're really passionate about it. And you might find out you don't like it as much as something else, or it could lead to something else. But you got to get out of the house. You got to get out of the office. You have to meet people and experience people in the field that you're interested in. And when you do start working at a company, you have to get by based on merit, because if you don't, you're only going to go so far. You could waste 10, 20 or more years of your life in positions that are not appropriate for you. And these people could care less about what this does to people's careers. If there's an economic downturn, and eventually there always is, the people that don't contribute as much are going to be fired. They're going to lose their jobs. I've done a lot of videos on the subject of diversity, equity, and inclusion and the woke agenda. I can tell you I've done a couple related to diversity offices getting a lot of layoffs, because they really don't contribute to the business. No one should want any part of a job, or really even any part of an opportunity, that's tied in with this progressive DEI agenda. If you don't get a position based on merit, your career isn't going to be worth anything. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Always love to see your ideas. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications, give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another video. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.